Well, here we are, Friday morning, happiest day of the week apart from Monday, and we're going to meet with Pat Biggart. Who else?
Good
All right,
morning,
Pat.
Jude.
Isn't it a beautiful
Grand.
morning? Isn't it good to be alive?
We do our weekly forecast here. It's absolutely beautiful out there this morning.
Gorgeous.
Sun's shining.
Yeah, there's only one small black cloud hanging over all this, and that was that game in Wembley last night, where England, shall we say, thrashed at their ease the Republic of Ireland, or Ireland as I prefer to call it. What did you watch the match, Pat?
No, I didn't, Jude. I dipped in and out of it like it was a friendly, but I know where you're going with all this. I was sitting watching this, same as you, and I was thinking, I watched your man Grealish could have played for Ireland. Damien Rice or Declan Rice could have played for Ireland. Harry Maguire could have played for Ireland. Harry Kane's grandfather was from Galway. He was over in Galway for his grandfather's funeral there quite recently. He could have played for Ireland. Instead of that, we're sort of digging from the bottom of the pool because there's poor Stephen Kenny. People are having a go at him, but right now, not only has he lost most of his top players, he's lost most of his bottom players as well. You know what I mean? So here's poor old Stephen trying to take on England with a very, very weakened team.
It's particularly galling because Jack Grealish was, I would say, the best man in the field. I only watched the first half. I couldn't bear it after the England started scoring. But Jack Grealish really is one nifty footballer, and he's really come in. The reports today all say, the English papers say he's the best man in the field. And he actually played Gaelic football for quite a while in England and even played at Croke Park in Gaelic. So he clearly was steeped, and he went to, if you look at Wikipedia, you see he went to Catholic, like Harry Maguire, went to obviously Catholic primary school, secondary school, so clearly Irish. The question is, people say, Grealish, he really turned his back on Ireland, and he shouldn't have, or Harry Maguire turned his back on Ireland, or Harry Kane turned his back on Ireland. I'm forced to say it's all about the money. Is that too harsh this morning?
No, it's not at all. Sure, wait a minute. Jack Grealish played for Ireland underage, and then it came to the whipping of the crutches. He decided to go for England. Jude, when you play for England in England, if you know what I mean, all doors are open. There's advertising contracts, there's newspaper columns, there's TV work, there's everything that comes your way. You go and play for the Republic of Ireland, and you're English. Once your career's over, basically you're over. Whereas, look, they still talk about Gaza. Look at Gary Lineker. You just go down. If you're a star man for England and you play for England across the globe, you're sort of made for life.
I really don't blame them. But I think we should face the facts. It is all about the money, and I think we should stop playing national anthems before games, because that suggests that these people are representing their country, they're proud to be there, and so on. And they play Aaron Vein, and not a single one of them knows the words. Not a single one of them. And I think the anthem they should play in place of Aaron Vein it should be money, money, money. Or if I were a rich man,
that's
sing along to that, I guess. I just think we should stop kidding ourselves that people talk about, I'm really proud to pull on the shirt, proud to stay.
The guys kissing the jersey and all that sort of stuff. But I don't mean to bust your bubble, but I've watched the playing around the vein, and some of the GA players don't know it too much either.
I quite agree. I personally, I would either stop playing around the vein and say, well, what's the bloody connection between the two when if you're playing Dublin versus Kerry or whatever, or if you're going to have it, any player who doesn't know the words or won't sing the words, well, you're not playing.
I think Mickey Hart, who's the manager of Tyrone, apparently he insisted they were playing in an All-Ireland final, and he insisted all his players learned the words. We had attention to detail, but it's still, he said, if you're going to be there and you're going to be, and the camera's watching you, know the words.
Well, even apart from the camera watching you, if you have any sort of self-respect and any sort of consistency in your behaviour, if you're standing proudly for and facing the flag and all that, then you really should know the bloody words. Really pathetic. It reminds me of that Tory MP. Do you remember that Tory MP who mouthed the words? The words of the Welsh national anthem.
Well, Yeah, and he was totally found out.
Yeah. Anyway, there, as I say, there's a chuckle to be found in that game last night,
Yeah.
but there's more of a dark cloud, really.
Yeah.
Sad is all I can say. And maybe it's a question of stopping deceiving ourselves, because I suppose if you or I were in that situation, I wish to God we were, we probably would go for the money too, wouldn't we?
Absolutely.
Even though we're two proud Irish.
That's how loyal we are.
Okay, let's come to the second item, Pat, and it's a rather more serious one, and that is the question of these vaccines. And that is, it's kind of wonderful, but there's a serious injustice already, even before it's been distributed. And that is, according to, I think it is Morning Star, I got this item in, more than 80% of global supplies, that's of all the supplies that's going to be churned out by Pfizer, of COVID-19 vaccine have already been bought up. More than 80% has been bought up by the world's wealthiest countries, even though the wealthiest countries only are 14% of the world's population. So while some people are making billions, and that is what they say Pfizer will be making, and they're not going to sell it cheap to anybody, especially to wealthier countries. While that billions of pounds are being made, millions, if not billions, will die.
Yeah, Jude, I think America is, and I'm open to correction this, but I think America has 100 million doses ordered from Pfizer. Britain is something like 60 to 80 million ordered. And apparently it's costing somewhere between 25 and 35 US dollars per dose. So right away, Jude, you can see the figures adding up there a hell of a lot. But the point you make, Africa, like, are they just going to be left to, the people there left to die? You know, I don't know, the Chinese, I think, have got some sort of vaccine, one they've developed on their own. I'm not 100% certain of that. But hey, when you think of the rich countries in the world, the EU, I think, has had an order for 300 million or something. I'm not 100%.
Maybe 100 million, I think.
Well, Ireland's getting 1% of that. We're getting something like 3 million doses.
Yeah.
Jude, when you look at it like this, in the Republic, there are 5.5 million people. And if you're getting 3 million, and each person has to get 2 doses, so that's 1 point. So you're 1.5. So is the other 4 million going to get nothing? So it's going to be very interesting. But Jude, it's inequality in the world. I think it really gets to people. So basically, the rich Western countries have said to the poor, underdeveloped or developing countries or third world countries, "To hell with you. We're looking after ourselves," and it's been ever thus.
But maybe we shouldn't be too severe on them, Pat, because I'll ask you a question, and I give you my own answer first if you want. But supposing you were given a choice that the vaccine should go first to the least developed countries, and that the most developed countries should be at the back of the queue, would you go with that?
I would, to an extent, Jude. Yeah, I would, because and it's not that I'm any sort of heroic thing. Like, but we have a far better chance in this part of the world of surviving it. Jude, if you're living somewhere in a hovel, somewhere in India, or in the back streets of Lagos, or somewhere in the or a sort of a Bantu land somewhere in South Africa, and with no sanitation, no running water, no nothing, all those sort of things, your chances of survival, if you get COVID, I would say, are quite slim. Whereas over here, Jude, unless you're very careless, by and large, now there's always going to be exceptions. By and large, rich white people have been able to survive it.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, it'd be a nice test of one's moral fiber, or to what extent would countries insist still on taking, the rich countries insist on taking the vaccines. If somebody was to raise this question in a very public way, who should get these supplies first? And make it that equation I've made. Should we be giving it to the least developed countries who are most at risk, or should we be giving them to? See, they talk quite a bit about, say, in Ireland or in England or the States, to get it to people who are most at risk first. Maybe the healthcare workers, but then the oldest, the over 80s, and then on down. So they are making an appearance of being, prioritizing the people who are most at risk. But then, as you point out, the people who are really most at risk are in countries which won't get it to God in His way. Wouldn't it be? It'd be nice though. If I think it'd be sort of neat if China was to develop their vaccine, and given the big links that they are establishing with Africa, they were to use their soft power to bring the vaccine to many of the African countries that really need it. that would be a huge propaganda boost for China.
Absolutely. Jude, there's a guy I know who's got a business dealings with China, and he told me they have developed their own vaccine. And he says, in fact, the COVID rate in China is way down. They're nearly back to normal. So if that is so, now I haven't seen any independent verification of that, but as you say, if China has developed one and it can roll it out to Africa and all, you're dead right. You talk about influence and wanting influence and friends massively.
Yeah, it really would be a marvelous move. But I must say that sort of appalling. I kind of knew I must have known in the back of my mind that it was privileged countries like ourselves that were going to get the vaccine first. But I didn't know it was such appalling sort of imbalance. 80% of the supply is going to 14% of the countries because they're rich. You know,
they're rich.
Tough. Okay, right. Let's move on to another fairly tough item, and that was a piece that you sent to me. I'm not sure where do you remember? RT News. You said, Professor Sam McConkey has said that around Ochnacloy, the COVID rate could be up to 12 times it is in the Republic, and that's borne out yesterday by the death figures, because only one person died in the Republic, 15 died in the North. Why do you think there is such a stark contrast between the two jurisdictions? And secondly, what's your thoughts about the point McConkey's raising, that it is places near the border like Donegal that are in the most difficult state in the Republic?
So way back in March or April when me and you were doing these, I made one very simple observation too. Myself and my wife went out one day, and we ended up in the middle of, I think it's Funtown or a wee small station, a petrol station where we filled up, and it said clearly on there, before you come into the shop, put on your mask and do your hands. This is a wee shop in a wee village in the middle of nowhere, about 4 houses type thing. Come into Derry later that afternoon, and went into a supermarket. I'll even name it. I think it's called B&M on the Strand Road. And there was no sanitation. No, there's people serving there had no masks and all the rest, and everybody walking around. No social distancing, no nothing. I actually got quite nervous. I said to my wife, "Hey, come on, let's get out of here." Jude, a lot of people think you were having a go at Northerners when you pointed out. There's way back in about March, April, the South was basically in lockdown, and there were people coming into Donegal from Belfast and all the rest. There was two sets of guidelines on one island, and that has been the recipe for disaster.
That's right. We said this before. Like, there's no doubt that it should be a uniform system right throughout the island. Otherwise, you're going to have problems. But I'll tell you something. I think that there's a sort of there's a footnote to all of this, and that is, if you look at the North, what's the reason you don't have full lockdown for the next fortnight, despite medical advice from the chief medical officer, Dr. Michael McBride, I think it is. Yeah. The reason there isn't lockdown is that the DUP have fought it tooth and nail.
Yeah,
they wouldn't agree to it. So all this crap about following the best medical advice is rubbish. Another thing that really annoys me, we know that Sinn Féin, the Alliance Party, the Green Party, even the Ulster Unionists all wanted a full lockdown for a fortnight, according to, following the medical advice. Yeah. The DUP resisted that. Now, yesterday, I think it was yesterday, on Talkback, William Crawley's programme, you had a DUP person and a Sinn Féin person, and they were arguing clearly. DUP is saying, no, we need to keep stuff open, and Sinn Féin is saying we have to save lives. And there was an Alliance woman there, and she said to Crawley, "Oh, here they go, bickering again." Crawley essentially agreed with that. I think that's outrageous. This is the old thing about one lot's as bad as the other. In this case, one lot is not as bad as the other, as the Alliance Party well knows, because they were part of the sort of coalition who wanted to have a whole lockdown for the next fortnight. And now they've had to do a sort of a half lockdown, a 1 week lockdown, and then begin to open up stuff. These guys, they care more about their own electability, and I'm talking about the DUP now, and their backwoodsmen, than they do about people living or dying. That's it.
Well, Jude, they're really going to have a massive look at what's going on. As are 15 people or is 15 people a day dying? Is that an acceptable rate of for COVID? I would hardly think so.
It is shocking, you know. I mean, I
Uh,
don't think people, of course, I think Arlene Foster or somebody said, oh, they're not going to take any lessons on people dying from Sinn Féin. You know, what a half-baked, useless,
yeah,
illogical comment to make. It doesn't matter.
yeah,
Even Sinn Féin have been out killing people by right, left, and centre for no reason.
yeah,
I still wouldn't excuse them from doing things that
mm,
will result in more deaths of people who are
yeah,
vulnerable. Uh,
yeah,
why that? And the fact that the media, like as I say, talk back, giving them cover, you know, where
yeah,
it's seen that for Sinn Féin to be arguing against them on air, against the
yeah.
DUP, is seen as another episode in this, you know, the
Well,
dogfight.
surely somebody's got to ask the question. Yesterday, the R rate in the north has spiked the way up. The infection rate is way up. The numbers are way up.
Yeah.
Surely somebody has to say, wait a minute. If the south is way down and we're all on the one island, and Jude, what 5.5 million, or around about 5 million people living in the Republic, about 1.5 million living in the north, right? If you work it out, the south has had one death. Northern Ireland, 15 deaths. Surely that statistic alone should get people saying, wait a minute, there's something seriously wrong here.
I'm wondering, you know, would the DUP maybe have in their mind the notion that they would push the likes of the border at Donegal into having guards there? You know, I mean, it would be the logical thing.
Yeah,
If you've got a system in the south where you're only having one death, but you have
yeah,
places like Donegal, which has got a very high rate, or at least is all sorts of dangers that other
yeah,
counties don't have.
yeah,
It's clearly coming from the north. It's coming from Derry. It's very natural. But
yeah.
you know, you'd be tempted if you're somebody like yourself living in the south to say we should stop these people coming in because it's
Well,
spreading. The
there's a
virus.
Dr. Martin Coyne at Lifford. He's not advocating quite that, but he's saying the Gardaí really should be hitting much harder on people, saying unless you have got a legitimate reason to cross over into Strabane, you should not be going there. Now, Jude, I noticed the Gardaí. I don't live too far from the border. I noticed now they're nearly permanently on a couple of checkpoints down there. But Jude, like, let's get this clear. There's a friend of mine. He's a newspaper man, and for some months back, when we were in lockdown, he pointed out to me. He says there are more camper vans than you could shake a stick at down in the Fanad region, and he says a lot of them have got Northern Ireland registrations and so on. Dude, we were following one rules, and the North was following a different rule. That doesn't mean that, you know. It's the guidelines. It's the lack of joined up thinking. And Jude, we're all going to pay a price for it, but particularly people in the north. And I don't think the DUP can stand over their position one iota. This thing about the economy, Jude, what comes first? You can always get money back, but you can't bring somebody back from the grave.
That's right, absolutely. And as I say, I really sort of resent the Alliance Party representative who had suggested was the reason they couldn't agree, and that's how it's reported in papers like The Guardian, that the DUP and Sinn Féin couldn't agree between them, you know,
Yeah,
as if like one lot was stupid and the other was stupider.
yeah,
You know, it's clearly a case of trying to, this notion, I mean, maybe if I was a businessman, I'd talk differently. But
yeah,
this notion that you say, oh, well, I've got to make a livelihood and keep people in jobs and so on. Yeah, there's no good in having a job if you're dead. You know,
yeah.
you've got to give
No,
people a
Jude,
life.
like I accept totally. It's not an easy issue, and I'm not sort of dismissing it. But right now, Northern Ireland's got the North. No matter what we look at it, the North's got a major issue, and they sort of say in the middle of that, oh, but wait a minute, the economy is more important than health.
What's your
You know,
thinking, Pat, about the DUP? Do you think that the reasons for going their own way and pushing for the keeping open of businesses is concern for businessmen, or is it to sort of to make a distinction between the way that they work and the other part, the different country next door works, the Republic?
yeah, Judah, I've always felt that the latter. I think they are refusing to work in lockstep with the Republic purely not for health reasons, not for economic reasons, but purely political reasons. It's been as the nose in your face. It's that obvious, and they don't want to be seen in any way that once they accept that this is an all-Ireland problem, the ramifications of that. So are a lot of other things, agriculture, industry, tourism. You know, once you accept that, so
Yeah.
oh no, you know, they're never. It's so obvious that it's political.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's stop whipping them and let's go to somebody else who got a whipping during the week. And that was this story that you got. I don't know where you got. Probably got an RT again, did you? The
Yeah.
attacks on Sinn Féin. Whenever Leo was being sort of examined for his actions in passing information, confidential information to a pal of his, and a vote of confidence was being held, where you had these people not. Well, you could tell it. You had the story.
I know. There's 2 or 3 things come up. I got a couple of things on social media yesterday, but somebody sent me a thing. I think it was in one of the Irish papers yesterday, that candidates coming in to do work as researchers for Fine Gael, the first thing they're asked to do is do a critique attacking Sinn Féin. That's the first thing that, you know.
Where did you get that?
I'll send it on to you, but it exists.
Was that on social media? Was that social media?
No, it's actually somebody took a bit of I think it might have been Irish Times. Somebody's actually taken a photo of the headline, and might even been Irish News, I'm not sure. And anyway, that was the first thing. And if you want a researcher's job, they're looking for you. First thing you do. No, and somebody else sent me on this. I watched a wee bit of it on, I think it was Tuesday night. No, the vote of no confidence in Leo. Now, if all the senior Fine Gael people had stood up and with their hands in their pocket and addressed, but every one of them stood up, one after the other, with a script attacking Sinn Féin, and I'm going, wait a minute. And Joe McHugh, who's not the who I happen to know reasonably well from years back, Joe stood up and he had a real go about these guys in Belfast, the monitors in Belfast, telling people in Sinn Féin what to do in Dublin and all this sort of stuff, the backroom boys and all this sort of, and you're going, that's not Joe. I don't ever remember Joe talking to guys. But there was Heather Humphreys, Joe. I could keep on going. Every one of them was reading from a script. And I'm saying, this is coordinated. This is not what they really think themselves. This is the party spinning off guys, giving them the scripts to read from.
I wonder if that's unique, Pat. I mean, surely all parties, and that's one of the things they accuse Sinn Féin of particularly, they say that they have a sort of a rigid iron Stalinist discipline.
Yeah,
and
they were doing themselves what they accused others of. It was quite obvious the strategy was protect Leo at all costs. So the vote of no confidence was on Leo, but it turned out to be just they didn't. The Fine Gael people didn't really address the issue in regard to Leo. Because Sinn Féin had brought the motion of no confidence, we're not here to listen to people who. And by the way, Bobby Story's funeral. Jesus, if they don't have Bobby Story's funeral, got more writing than I won't even crack a joke about it. But it has been used non-stop. Like I always think, you reached in the bottom of the barrel when you keep bringing out the same, tired old. Leo did something that he should have done. End of story. And he was Taoiseach at the time. But bring out Bobby Stories to sort of defend.
Pat, here, surely that's just politics. Like if I'm a politician,
of course it is.
I'm going to seek every method I can possibly get to avoid damage to my leader and to inflict damage on other people.
Of course it is, Jude. I'm not even arguing that. But hey, it hasn't. The point is, I think eventually people start getting very. Micheál Martin has had his career having to go with Sinn Féin. They're now down to about 11%. Jude, you've got to have more than just attacking. You defend your wrongdoing by attacking those who are pointing out your wrongdoing. Like, it has to be more than that.
Well, they wouldn't be doing it if they didn't think it would work.
Well, of course, yeah. There are people in Fine Gael who believe everything that they're going to be told, that the party's run by a couple of guys in West Belfast, and Mary Lou McDonald and Michelle O'Neill are only puppets. And I've heard it a million times, and so have you. It's all that sort of stuff.
Actually, I was kind of struck. I thought I saw, now I'm open to correction on this, but I thought I saw more than just Fine Gael putting the boot into the Shinners. I have a memory of seeing at least one Labour guy on his feet saying what a share the Shinners were and how they were being directed from other places and so on.
Yeah.
It was. Maybe it's a fear that's shared by all of the parties in the Dáil, apart from Sinn Féin. All of them fear Sinn Féin. Clearly, Fine Gael will fear them as rivals. Clearly, Fianna Fáil will certainly fear them as taking the place of the Republican Party. but also Labour and also any of the others.
Well,
Because
Jude, they're all playing the same field. Particularly Labour would see what Sinn Féin have described themselves as a socialist party.
yeah, well, you see, even they weren't. They'd upset the balance. You know, if you've been used to a way things are run, and you know that one period of office is this party and another period of office is that party, and then we have this coalition with these people and this coalition with these people, and then suddenly this big bloody party comes out of the north, as they would see it, and starts, you know, kicking over the furniture. Of course, they're going to be wanting to crush them and get after them at any opportunity. In other words, I'm saying is it's not just Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael that don't like Sinn Féin. It's most of the parties. In fact, I can't think of a single party in the South that doesn't dislike Sinn Féin. And I think essentially for the same reason. They don't want to see them coming down into the South and playing a part in government.
There's an element of that. And of course there is that whole thing, the old whiff of cordite that's still around. You know, they are a party that has really emerged out of the Troubles. And, you know, they're a bit like Fianna Fáil many years ago. And, you know, they bring all that with them. You know, but I think, you know, some of the stuff that's going to run around, you know, it's all this conspiracy theory stuff, you know, not without one iota of proof. Jude, remember the famous one about the fact that, you know, during that somebody Martin O'Muller had run what do you call it, a budget past somebody, and then they were saying there were others sort of controlling it. Every party, you know, and I had to laugh, the DUP, there were spads in the DUP who had more power than ministers. But that was totally ignored. You know, in other words, point out a flaw in somebody else, but ignore the one in your own.
Yeah. Okay, we're nearly out of time, Pat. There's an item we didn't talk about in advance, which I noted on the radio this morning. I'm not sure is his first name Jack, but Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire
Peter.
Ripper, died this morning, I think. And he had been given, I think he was tried in several cases. He killed 13 women and tried to kill another 6 or 7. He was given a life sentence that was really going to mean a life sentence. I mean, there was no way he was going to get out. So he died. And they say he stopped refusing, he refused medical intervention when he got COVID because he had a lot of other conditions. And he died at 74. Do you think that jail he was in, that prison he was in, was a place where he should have been?
Jude, I don't really know enough about it, to tell you the truth, but
well, he killed 13 women.
He killed 13 people, and Jude, he was a very dangerous guy. Like Jesus, some of the murders were horrific. You know, so.
You think it belonged?
I'm at 70. I don't know what sort of mental state he was in at 74, but he was seriously dangerous when he was in his prime. And like a lot of these people, if they're taken to hospital, the next thing they're disappeared or something. Now at 74 and a whole lot of medical conditions, I don't know what sort of how dangerous it would be at that stage. But you know, someone I had a friend in Australia. He said, Pat, you know, he says when somebody kills once, you can sort of say, look, that could have been an accident. It could have been sort of crime of passion. Could be anything. But hey, when you kill 13 times and try 6 other, the only place really you should be is in jail.
But there's a big, sort of central question here. Whether or not you say Sutcliffe represents pure evil. He took 13 poor defenseless women and murdered them and tried to do the same thing with another half dozen. So, for God's sake, and you saw whenever the van would come out with him in it, and you see it for other people too, you know, the people around shouting and kicking the van and, you know, spraying
exactly.
Kill him and put him in jail and put him in hell and so on. I think myself that anybody who kills 13, I mean, there was nothing in it for him other than the killing. Not a thing in it other than killing people, women. I think the man was mad. And if a man is mad or a woman is mad, they don't belong in jail. They belong in a mental institution. Now, I don't think it's enough to say, oh, well, the bugger could get out of there. Well, bloody mental institutions where they can't get out of it. And that should be perfectly possible. It does seem to be, honestly, quite wrong. And I think it's reacting to a kind of newspaper mentality. Here's this evil, the embodiment of evil, this beast, and we'll lock him up and punish him for his crimes for the rest of his existence. I just think that's very
But you know, I agree with it to an extent. But hey, here's the thing: I always wonder about these people who they're insane. This guy got away with murder. He was sane enough to know how to hide, to cover his tracks. He was logical enough to do all this sort of stuff. But then somebody says, "Oh, I was insane." How insane was he? Just evil? That he enjoyed killing? That he got some sort of either sexual thrill from it or some sort of psychological thrill from it? You know, well, he survived. He survived for what, 4 or 5 years, 6 years? Killing people, and then the cops couldn't catch him.
Yeah,
that seems a pretty clever, saying. He blended in with the local community, and nobody copped on.
So, Pat, are you saying then that you believe that there are evil people who simply set out to do evil? They're perfectly sane, but just set out to do the most appalling thing.
Yeah, I believe there are not too many, thank God, but there are some. There are sociopaths. No, they're not evil. They're not insane.
Exactly. If they're sociopaths, they should be in a hospital.
No, they're sociopath. I regard sociopath as somebody who has no concern about anybody else but themselves. They're just totally. They're evil. They're not insane.
No. That's a mental condition. If you don't care about anybody but yourself, literally, then there's something wrong with your head.
But these people can survive and live totally normal lives. Don't care about anybody but themselves. And there are other people who get a thrill out of killing things and all the rest, but who can survive totally normal. I think everybody wants to put something down as psychiatric. There are people, I know a couple of guys growing up who were not particularly nice people, and and I bet when they got married, I would hate to be their wives, because I'd love to know how they treated them. But they weren't insane, but they were seriously nasty.
Well, it's something we could talk about for a long time. The longer I live, the more I come towards the idea that a lot of the times we punish people for things that are actually they're not literally to blame for, because they're not right in the head.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I'll leave you this. I had a friend, a priest, who told me one time that Hitler could well be in heaven. And I says, "God, Jesus, run that by me again." Not say his name. He says, "Well," he says, "God forgives everyone," and he says that man had to be insane.
Yes, except the one thing I would say there is, we always point the finger at Hitler and the 6 million Jews.
Well, 6 million.
That is shocking. But then again, I mean, who gave the order for the bombing of Dresden? Who gave the order for the bombs at Nagasaki or Hiroshima? Hundreds of thousands of totally innocent people. I mean, totally innocent people. Ordinary Japanese people or ordinary German people. The idea was to strike terror into their hearts, and they succeeded certainly in the case of Japan and in the case probably of Germany as well. Could you not say that those are evil acts? I tend to think they are. Anyway,
we'll leave it there.
Okay.
Another cheerful note.
You'll have to think of. Next time you come back, have a joke so we can end with it. All right. I'm going to be depressed for the rest of the day.
Good luck, Jim.